All right, once we get our animals packed, and if you've got more than one, we tie them together, and that's called tailing up. And that term came in the old days from when they tied the lead rope of one animal to the tail of another. They were tied together like this. But there's no give in that. If there's an accident and say this one falls off the cliff, if she's tied hard and fast to that one's tail, she's going too. And so that's why they've come up with these breakaways now, and we tie the animals together that way. So if they get in trouble, they'll break loose. It's strong enough. 1/4-inch hemp works pretty well for breakaways. Normally what we do is we have a pigtail which comes from the saddle rigging right here, one of these rings, like a nylon rope or something that won't break. You come back through the saddle and then you tie a 1/4-inch hemp to that so that if that breaks, you can just tie another one on and you haven't lost your pigtail that's coming from the saddle. So we take the rope and you take the loop, you go through the pigtail and you take the loop and the tail together and you make a half hitch with the rope that goes to the animal and stick that through. And that is how they tie together. Now this rope wants to be long enough that they can drink, but not long enough that they can get a leg over it when they're walking because it's hanging down, or that if this one's kicking, they're going to get a leg over it. So one way to check that is to see it should just reach the ground. So that's about the right length right there. Now, one of the things that I learned on the job training by experience is if you've got several animals to tie together in a pack string, if you are always tying one to the one that's still tied up, it's a lot easier. In other words, Dilly's tied to the trailer here, I tied Peaches to Dilly. So you take the last animal in your pack string, the one that's going to be on the end, which is the one that wants to be the quickest, the most nimble, that they can follow without having to trot. In other words, the longer the string you have, the more that whiplash effect works. So if you're crossing creeks or going over logs or things like that, you have to slow your horse down, just kind of check your horse for a minute while the mules still take a step so that that last one isn't being hurried. So anyway, the one on the end wants to be the quickest one, and the one at the slowest one wants to be in right up front. You want your lead horse to be one that is going to lead without jerking your arm off, but then you want from slow to fast on the end. So you take your last animal, you tie it to the one it's going to follow. Then you take those two and tie it to the one it's going to follow, and take those three and tie it to the one it's going to follow. So each time the one you're tailing to is still tailed up. If you go the other direction, they might start doing this and you're running along behind trying to catch up while they're snaking around trying to tail them together. Once we have our animals tailed up and we head down the trail, there's some things to think about when you're leading a pack string. You want to always check on your loads. So every little bit you look back and you see if your loads are staying balanced. And usually, like I said, within the first half mile, if they're not balanced, you're going to know about it. And the easiest way to fix that if they're not balanced is to add a rock to the light side so that it brings it back into balance. Sometimes it'll only be off a pound or two and it'll be a little rock, and a little flat rock you might be able to stick into the pack in here, or if you've got ropes on and it's too tight and you can't get it in, you can kind of wedge it in underneath the lash ropes. So you're watching your packs. Like I said, when you're going down a trail, you're watching for obstacles, you're slowing down and giving your animal a chance. You don't want your pack animals to trot, because what that does is you have a greater chance of that load getting off balance. And so you want to watch that.